On May 31st, 2026, the Sidemen changed forever. If you spent that evening scrolling through social media, you saw an internet in complete meltdown. Millions of fans were frantically picking apart the PR wording of KSI's sudden retirement video, analyzing his body language, and hunting for a hidden locker room feud. But while the public was looking for drama, they completely missed the real crisis happening behind closed doors. At that exact moment, a newly appointed corporate CEO was stepping into an office to face a multi-million-dollar business nightmare. This wasn't a falling out between childhood friends, it was a cold, structural calculation. Because when a creator collective builds a corporate empire, the biggest danger isn't internet cancellation or fading views. It's a financial vulnerability known as key man risk. In traditional finance, banks, institutional investors, and global logistics networks freak out when a company's single most critical human asset suddenly steps away from the machine. For a brand like 19 Vodka, KSI isn't just an entertainer. He is the primary human marketing engine driving the entire valuation. Supermarket distributors and retail chains do not sign multi-million-dollar supply contracts because they like a YouTube group. They sign them because of guaranteed, hyper-aggressive consumer velocity. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the internal panic currently consuming the Sidemen boardroom, and the high-stakes, desperate corporate strategy being engineered to save a massive liquor empire after its biggest asset just walked out the door. To understand the gravity of the crisis currently facing the Sidemen boardroom, we have to look past the internet drama and examine the actual business machinery of fast-moving consumer goods. In 2021, 19 Vodka was launched. To the casual viewer, it looked like standard creator merchandise, a limited-run, flash-sale product designed to extract a quick injection of liquidity from a highly loyal fan base. Historically, influencer merchandise lives and dies by this exact pump-and-dump cycle. A creator drops a hoodie or a limited-edition bottle. The die-hard fans buy it out within 48 hours, the cash is collected, and the operations team closes shop until the next quarter. It requires zero long-term infrastructure, zero complex logistics, and zero institutional accountability. But the Sidemen didn't want a merch play. They wanted a corporate legacy. They wanted to build a luxury spirits brand that could legitimately sit on retail shelves next to global titans like Diageo's Smirnoff and LVMH's Belvedere. To do that, a business cannot survive on internet hype alone. Hype is a volatile currency that fluctuates with every tweet, video upload, and public scandal. Institutional commerce demands predictability, physical distribution infrastructure, and consistent retail velocity. Between 2022 and 2024, the Sidemen quietly executed a massive, high-risk operational pivot. They stopped relying solely on their private, direct-to-consumer website and stepped directly into the cutthroat arena of traditional retail distribution. They signed a massive national partnership with Red Star Brands, a prominent corporate distributor specifically engineered to scale emerging consumer assets into multi-million-dollar behemoths. This corporate handshake changed the game. It meant that instead of shipping individual bottles from a central fulfillment warehouse to fans, 19 Vodka had to scale its manufacturing to meet the massive supply chains of the United Kingdom's largest grocery cartels. The strategy worked with astonishing speed. In 2022, Morrison's signed a massive commercial deal, stocking 19 Vodka across more than 300 of its physical supermarket locations. By late 2023, Tesco, the absolute titan of British grocery retail, rolled out the premium spirit brand across its nationwide network. Suddenly, 19 Vodka was no longer just a digital phenomenon. It was a physical asset, fighting for premium, eye-level real estate on the shelves of the country's largest retailers. It was securing space in bars, nightclubs, and hospitality menus nationwide. As the operations scaled, the underlying corporate data shifted. A direct-to-consumer influencer brand derives its valuation almost entirely from its traffic metrics, click-through rates, and social media impressions. But a fast-moving consumer goods brand on a supermarket shelf is valued on entirely different metrics: inventory turnover, supply chain efficiency, wholesale margins, and retail velocity per square foot. The Sidemen were no longer just managing a YouTube channel. They were managing a complex corporate balance sheet dependent on a massive network of third-party stakeholders who do not care about internet views. Behind the scenes, this transition forced the management team to implement a strict, unwritten operational rule that would govern the entire life cycle of the product. The rule was simple but absolute. The product has to be better than the promo. This phrase became the operational mantra inside the executive offices of 19th Vodka Limited. The executive team realized a fundamental truth about celebrity-led consumer brands. An initial marketing campaign can easily manipulate an audience into buying a product once out of sheer curiosity or loyalty. A fan will buy a bottle of vodka simply because KSI's face is attached to the promotion. But if the liquid inside the bottle tastes like cheap, unrefined industrial alcohol, that consumer will never buy a second bottle. The hype machine burns out immediately, repeat purchase metrics crater to zero, and the retail brand dies a swift, public death. To prevent this terminal cycle, the Sidemen's corporate architects intentionally tried to decouple the physical liquid from the internet personalities as quickly as possible. They invested millions of dollars into multi-stage distillation processes using premium British wheat to ensure the spirit achieved an optimal, velvety smooth profile that could genuinely impress discerning hospitality bartenders. They developed a sleek, minimalist, high-end bottle design that intentionally downplayed the creators' names, making it look like a sophisticated luxury asset rather than a novelty YouTuber gimmick. The goal was to execute a quiet, calculated transition. The management team wanted to weaponize the collective's massive social media reach to force open the doors of retail distribution, secure the initial supermarket shelf space, and generate immediate consumer awareness. But once the initial footprint was established, the product was engineered to stand completely on its own 2 feet, based on quality, simplicity, and independent market value. They were trying to build an asset that could survive, grow, and generate millions of dollars in recurring revenue, even if the Sidemen stopped uploading videos entirely. They were building an independent corporate entity designed for an ultimate liquidity event or an institutional acquisition. But as the brand scaled to meet this premium ambition, it inadvertently deepened its structural reliance on its single most powerful marketing asset. They were trying to outgrow the need for an influencer face, but the reality of the market proved that the face was still the ultimate structural foundation, keeping the entire retail ecosystem alive. Right as the corporate infrastructure reached its peak operational complexity, the delicate balance between independent product quality and individual creator presence was completely shattered. If you really want to understand the scale of the crisis that hit the Sidemen boardroom following KSI's announcement, you have to look directly at the unforgiving mechanics of supermarket distribution networks. In the traditional retail landscape, corporate giants like Tesco, Morrisons, Sainsbury's, and the hospitality monopoly Mitchells and Butlers do not allocate premium shelf space based on sentiment, friendship, or digital subscriber counts. They manage their stores using an incredibly precise data-driven metric known as sales per square foot. Every single millimeter of a retail shelf is hyper-monetized real estate. If a product sitting on that shelf fails to maintain a highly predictable, rapid rate of consumer velocity, it is costing the supermarket money every single hour it sits there unsold. For an independent brand trying to break into this arena, securing a nationwide listing is a multi-year logistical war. It requires passing strict quality audits, guaranteeing massive manufacturing volume, setting up complex third-party logistics networks, and navigating predatory credit terms. But the Sidemen had a golden ticket that allowed them to completely bypass this traditional friction: guaranteed consumer attention. When their corporate team sat down with retail buyers to pitch 19 Vodka, they didn't just present a premium liquid. They presented an aggregate audience of over 100 million highly active consumers. They promised the supermarkets that the moment a bottle hit the shelf, the sheer promotional force of the Sidemen ecosystem would drive waves of foot traffic directly through the grocery store doors. This leverage is what allowed them to scale 19 Vodka into nationwide distribution with unprecedented speed. But this leverage came with a terrifying, unspoken, structural catch. When a legacy corporation like Diageo launches a new spirit, the brand equity is distributed across a massive, diversified marketing budget, encompassing global sports sponsorships, traditional television commercials, billboard networks, and institutional PR campaigns. If the CEO of Diageo resigns tomorrow, the consumer velocity of Smirnoff doesn't drop by a single percentage point, because the brand's awareness is structurally decoupled from any single human being. With a creator-led brand, the entire financial architecture is built on an inverse framework. The brand equity is almost entirely concentrated within the personal identity of its founders. Inside the retail industry, this concentration is known as keyman risk. It is the ultimate vulnerability of the modern creator economy. The corporate contracts signed between 19 Vodka's holding companies and major retail distributors are predicated on the ongoing active promotion of the brand by its key assets. When Tesco, or a major national pub chain, signs a massive wholesale purchase order, their legal and financial analysts are calculating a specific risk model. They are betting that the continuous public visibility of the creators will maintain the product's high baseline velocity. On May 31st, 2026, when KSI released his video announcing his sudden departure and retirement from the Sidemen Collective, that risk model instantly fractured. To the public and the fans, it was an emotional moment signaling the end of an era for a beloved internet group. But inside the corporate offices of KSI Vodka's distribution partners, it was a systemic shock. The moment the video went live, automatic financial triggers were pulled across the supply chain. Financial analysts at major supermarkets didn't see an emotional creator talking about burnout. They saw the primary marketing driver of a major consumer asset completely disconnecting himself from the brand's long-term operational timeline. This is where the structural friction of physical retail becomes incredibly dangerous for creators. If a digital creator suffers a drop in viewership on a YouTube video, their AdSense revenue drops slightly, but their operational costs remain virtually zero. But in the physical world of FMCG commerce, the operational costs are locked in months in advance. 19 Vodka Limited operates on a continuous, massive supply chain. Raw ingredients are being purchased from farms, glass bottles are being manufactured at industrial plants, distillation facilities are running around the clock, and third-party logistics providers are moving pallets across national warehousing networks on fixed, high-value corporate contracts. All of these moving parts require massive, upfront liquid capital. The entire system is funded by a delicate cycle of recurring wholesale orders. If major supermarket buyers look at the sudden departure of a brand's primary human asset and predict that consumer velocity will drop by 30 or 40% over the next quarter, their reaction is swift and ruthless. They do not wait to see if the brand will survive. They immediately begin de-risking their exposure. They scale back their upcoming purchase orders. They reduce the amount of eye-level shelf space allocated to the product, and they demand renegotiated credit terms to protect their own profit margins. The new management team and the executive board of 19 Vodka found themselves trapped in a terrifying corporate vice grip. On one side, they had a highly rigid, incredibly expensive physical supply chain running at maximum capacity with massive overhead costs that could not be shut down without incurring millions of dollars in contractual penalties. On the other side, they were suddenly facing a massive wave of skepticism from institutional retail buyers who were questioning the long-term viability of the brand's marketing engine. The core challenge lands entirely on the desk of the company's executive leadership. A standard corporate turnaround plan involves cutting the advertising budget, restructuring staff, or lowering product prices. But none of those traditional corporate levers work when your primary vulnerability is the loss of personal brand equity. The CEO can secure the shelf space on paper, and the operations team can keep the bottling lines running perfectly. But when the single biggest driver of that consumer velocity completely changes his lifestyle and steps away from the group identity, the entire contract model faces a fatal clause that threatens to collapse the entire empire from the inside out. The boardroom doors slammed shut, and the corporate execution began. Face to face with a potential retail blackout, the remaining 6 sidemen and their executive team had to completely rewrite their financial playbook. There was no time to mourn the end of an era or debate the logistics of a public relations narrative. In the high-stakes world of fast-moving consumer goods, hesitation is a terminal diagnosis. The company's newly appointed leadership immediately initiated a radical corporate restructuring designed to achieve one definitive goal: turn 19 Vodka from a celebrity-dependent project into an unshakable institutional brand asset that could survive without its primary human headline maker. To execute this pivot, the management team had to fundamentally alter how the company allocated its liquid capital. For years, the brand's marketing strategy relied on a highly predictable pattern. Every time a new flavor launched or a retail milestone was met, the corporate team would simply drop a high-production video onto the main Sidemen channels, leverage individual social media accounts, and let the aggregate force of their digital footprint drive immediate foot traffic to the shelves. It was highly efficient, incredibly cheap, and delivered a near-zero customer acquisition cost. But with the primary pillar of that marketing matrix stepping out of the frame, that play was officially dead. Instead of panic, the boardroom chose aggressive diversification. They immediately began siphoning millions of dollars away from traditional, creator-led digital promotions and channeling that capital straight into heavy, boots-on-the-ground experiential marketing and institutional brand positioning. They recognized that if the casual YouTube fan was going to step back, the brand needed to capture a completely different market demographic: the premium nightlife consumer, the high-end hospitality sector, and the independent festival circuit. This financial reallocation triggered a massive, rapid overhaul of the product line itself. The executive team realized that standard, high-volume bottles of unflavored vodka were too closely tied to the original identity of the group. To break free from that corporate shadow, the company rapidly accelerated its research and development pipeline, pivoting heavily toward the fastest-growing sector in the global spirits industry: the premium ready-to-drink, or RTD, premixed cocktail market. By aggressively launching high-margin canned cocktails, specialized flavor profiles, and ready-to-pour mixes, 19 Vodka wasn't just introducing new inventory. They were changing the consumer psychology behind the brand. A canned cocktail sitting in a grocery store cooler or being served at a massive summer music festival isn't bought because a consumer follows a specific YouTube collective. It is bought because of convenience, immediate flavor appeal, and contextual relevance. The product was quietly stepping out of the bedrooms of internet fans and stepping directly into the mainstream clubbing culture of the real world. Simultaneously, the corporate team initiated a highly calculated land grab within the experiential hospitality space. They began signing exclusive, multi-year pouring rights contracts with major independent music festivals, arena venues, and high-profile nightlife hospitality groups across the United Kingdom and Europe. Through these institutional agreements, 19 Vodka secured guaranteed, high-volume wholesale distribution that was entirely insulated from the fluctuations of the internet algorithm. If a consumer walks up to a festival bar and 19 is the exclusive vodka provider for the weekend, that consumer is buying the product out of sheer proximity and environmental demand. The velocity is locked in by contract, completely independent of who is currently appearing in a YouTube thumbnail. This operational shift required a complete rewiring of the company's internal corporate culture. The management team brought in seasoned, battle-tested executives from legacy beverage conglomerates like Diageo and Pernod Ricard, individuals who knew exactly how to navigate the predatory realities of supermarket slotting fees, supply chain optimization, and international trade compliance. The corporate language inside the offices shifted permanently. The company stopped talking about video views and social media impressions and began focusing entirely on net revenue per case, distributor inventory days, and regional market penetration metrics. But as this aggressive turnaround strategy rolled out across the retail landscape, a fascinating pattern interrupt began to emerge within the industry data. By intentionally pulling back from the traditional influencer hype machine and treating XIX Vodka like a serious, independent corporate entity, the management team was accidentally solving the exact problem that had plagued creator brands for a decade. They were forcing the product to earn its place on the shelf based on independent consumer merit, liquid quality, and structural supply chain reliability. They were executing a high-stakes corporate mutation, turning a vulnerable digital asset into a highly rigid institutional fortress. The remaining 6 founders took a deliberate step back from the frontline marketing, allowing the professional executive team to interface directly with corporate buyers, institutional distributors, and commercial lenders. They were effectively proving to Wall Street and the London financial sectors that the business could not only survive the loss of its most visible founder, but that the underlying corporate infrastructure was resilient enough to scale under intense structural duress. Yet, as the executive team successfully stabilized the physical supply chain and secured their supermarket real estate through pure operational dominance, a sudden, chilling realization rippled through the upper echelons of the corporate structure. The boardroom had managed to patch the bleeding hull of the 19 Vodka ship, but they quickly discovered that the shockwave of May 31st was never intended to be an isolated corporate crisis. While the Sidemen's executive team was burning through millions of dollars in liquid capital just to protect their regional liquor distribution, a completely different corporate entity across the Atlantic was quietly analyzing the exact same metrics. The ultimate game wasn't about saving a single spirit brand. It was about a much larger, hyper-aggressive financial maneuver that was currently unfolding in real time, completely catching the global market off guard. The dust in the Sidemen boardroom finally settled, revealing an unmistakable truth about the evolution of Internet commerce. The frantic corporate pivot to stabilize 19 Vodka wasn't just a tactical rescue mission, it was the ultimate proof of concept for a new era of business. In the creator economy, the ultimate endgame is no longer about accumulating millions of views or selling merchandise to a loyal fan base. The real goal, the true sign of operational maturity, is the total decoupling of the corporate asset from the physical human beings who created it. By stripping away the celebrity reliance, building out institutional ready-to-drink product lines, and securing locked-in hospitality pouring rights, the management team achieved the holy grail of venture capital. They transformed a volatile influencer project into a self-sustaining, bankable enterprise with an independent corporate valuation. They proved that an empire built on digital attention could mature into a legacy asset capable of weathering the sudden departure of its biggest star. But as the executive team looked over their newly fortified balance sheets, they realized they had only solved a single fraction of a much larger equation. Because while the remaining Sidemen were burning through liquid capital to protect their regional liquor footprint, a parallel, far more aggressive corporate maneuver was already underway. The sudden lifestyle shift and strategic retirement of May 31st wasn't an isolated crisis at all. It was the first domino in a highly coordinated transatlantic financial play. While the UK market was distracted by the future of a vodka brand, KSI's private corporate team, operating in lockstep with his American business partners, was already executing a massive equity migration. They weren't scrambling, they were consolidating. They were quietly preparing to leverage the explosive global reach of an entirely different multi-billion-dollar consumer asset. Saving 19 Vodka was a localized boardroom battle, but the ultimate war for global retail dominance was just beginning. Because on the other side of the Atlantic, Mr. Beast's logistics empire and Logan Paul's distribution network were already aligning their pieces on the board, preparing to combine forces with KSI to pull off the most cutthroat corporate consolidation the grocery industry had ever seen. The boardroom panic was over, but the high-stakes chess match for control of the global supply chain had just begun.